All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to talk about something that's literally keeping you alive right this second, even though you can't see them. I'm talking about enzymes, the tiny, unsung heroes inside every one of our cells. I want you to just picture this for a moment. What if digesting your lunch, that sandwich you had, took millions of years to break down? Seriously, millions. It sounds completely insane, right? Almost impossible. Well, thankfully, that's not how our bodies work. And the reason life operates on a time scale we can actually live in is all thanks to these incredible little molecular machines called enzymes. So to really get a handle on just how powerful they are, we first have to understand the massive problem they're solving for, well, every living thing on this planet. Your body is basically this giant, non-stop chemical factory. Reactions are happening all the time to power your cells, digest your food, even to think. But here's the catch. Without a little nudge, a lot of these reactions would happen at a glacial pace. We're talking way, way too slow to actually sustain life. And that is exactly where enzymes come in. Think of them as nature's ultimate catalysts. They're these specialized protein molecules that are like the body's super efficient labor force. They speed up those essential reactions, not just by a little, but by millions of times, making sure life happens in the fast lane. Okay, so that raises a pretty big question, right? If these proteins are so absolutely vital, how in the world does our body build them? Well, it all starts with a blueprint. And here's a look at that whole command structure. The master plans, the instructions for building every single enzyme are stored safely away in our DNA, which is tucked inside the nucleus of each and every cell. The whole process is kind of like a three-step factory assembly line. First up, you have transcription. That's where the cell makes a working copy of the DNA plan, and we call that copy mRNA. Then, step 2 is translation, where a little machine called a ribosome reads that mRNA copy and starts stringing together amino acids. And then comes the crucial third step, folding. Let's just zoom in on that translation step for a second. You can see here how the genetic code is read in these little groups of 3 letters. Each 3-letter word corresponds to a very specific amino acid that gets added to the chain. It's this incredibly precise language happening at a microscopic level. And now for that final, almost magical step, folding. That simple chain of amino acids is just the beginning. It starts to twist and coil and fold all over itself into more complex shapes. But for many enzymes to actually work, they have to reach this highest level, a super complex multi-unit structure. And you have to understand, that final, precise 3D shape is everything. It's what gives the enzyme its power. So we've established that shape is king. But how does that shape actually translate into doing a job? Well, it all comes down to a perfect fit. Every enzyme has what I like to call its business end. It's a very specific little pocket or groove on its surface called the active site. This is where the magic happens. The molecule it's designed to work on, that's called the substrate, binds right here, and this is where the chemical reaction takes place. The absolute best way to visualize this is the classic lock and key model. The active site is the lock, and it has a very specific shape. The substrate is the key, and only the right key will fit. This incredible specificity is what makes sure each enzyme only does its one designated job, which prevents total chemical chaos in our cells. But even a superhero sometimes needs a sidekick. And it turns out, these perfectly designed molecular machines are no different. Sometimes they need a little help to get the job done. These helpers are called cofactors. Now, they're not proteins themselves. They are other molecules that are absolutely required for some enzymes to work at all. They pretty much come in 2 flavors. They can be simple inorganic things, like metal ions, or they can be small organic molecules, and those get a special name, coenzymes. And if you look closely at these inorganic cofactors, you're going to recognize these names. We've got zinc, iron, magnesium. Sound familiar? Yeah, these are the essential trace minerals you hear about in your diet. This is why they're so important. They physically bind to our enzymes and are critical for them to work. So what about those other helpers, the coenzymes? Where do these organic molecules come from? Well, this might just connect a few dots for you. Turns out they are the metabolically active forms of the vitamins we eat. Here's a perfect example of that. We eat food that has thiamine, which is vitamin B1. Our body then uses an enzyme to modify it, turning it into this molecule here, TPP. That TPP is now an active coenzyme, and it's ready to go help its partner enzyme do its job. This direct link is exactly why vitamins are so vital for our health. Okay, let's zoom back out and look at the big picture. We've seen how they're built and how they work, so now let's talk about the massive impact they have on our health. You can think of them as our body's master keys. It's actually pretty simple. When your enzymes are working correctly, everything's humming along. You have a healthy metabolism, good digestion, muscles that contract, all the basics. But when an enzyme's activity goes haywire, if it's overactive or maybe underactive, that is very often directly linked to a disease. And that very link is precisely why enzymes are a huge target for medicine. A massive part of pharmaceutical research is basically a hunt for molecules that can specifically block the active sites of enzymes that are causing a disease. It's all about shutting down the problem right at the source. So this kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. We've seen that nearly every single process that defines our health is unlocked by a specific enzyme key. So it really makes you think, what are the consequences when one of those keys breaks, or gets bent, or just goes missing entirely?